morning, everyone. Welcome back to Pine Hollow out of Diagnostics. We're heading west, just crossed into Ohio. It's about a 4-hour drive. Customer called me up for a boom lift. It's not a Genie, it's not a JLG, it's an SB60 UpRight. Not familiar with that brand, but I told him, if you can get me a wiring diagram, I'll come diagnose it. So he found a wiring diagram, and the customer complaint is when he's using the platform controls, the thing just starts, it has a mind of its own. It like rotates left and right and is just obviously not safe. It's stuck on a site, I guess. He can't get it out of there because to drive the thing, you need to drive it from the platform, and when it's swinging around, that just doesn't work. So we'll be there soon. Check this thing out. I did some homework, about 2 hours of research on the diagrams, and they're fairly similar to the Genie boom lifts. So we'll see when we get there. So here we are on site in Ohio, looking at this 1999 UpRight SB60 boom lift. Cool. So from the ground controls, everything works perfectly. Starts up, runs on propane. Function enable. So we can raise the boom, raise the jib. I tried all of the functions here. Everything works great. However, from the platform controls, at first it worked fine for about 2 minutes. It drove, all the controls worked, and then became non-responsive. It didn't do its crazy thing, but the guys here who use it tell me that once it acts up, you have to leave it for hours to let it cool down, and then it comes back to life. It sounds like a controller problem. So here we have a Superflex 4 controller that is only used when you're on the platform. These switches here, we'll look at the diagram, they go directly to the relays or the solenoids right here on the hydraulic manifold. That's all analog, that works fine, obviously. However, let's switch it to platform. You hear clicking, this relay right here. You can see those points clicking. And this optimizer, kind of a primitive diagnostic scanner, it just says initializing system, and it doesn't do anything. So just for kicks, I have my oscilloscope here and a voltmeter. So obviously we want to check that the board has good powers and grounds. So the powers are right here. We have 12.5 on that wire. .4. 11.3, so something's drawing right now. And then we do have good ground, 5 millivolts there. .200 millivolts there. About 200 millivolts there. Okay, so powers and grounds are not an issue here. Let's try again. So it clicks for a while, right? We have 12.4 volts, and then something starts drawing. This stops clicking, and well, that's what happens. So right now we're just gathering some data. I was curious using the oscilloscope to measure there's also power and ground right here. that feeds the optimizer, and also transmit and receive. Kind of nice that they have labels right on the board. And well, let's see. So that's power. We're at 11.5 there. That's feeding the scanner. And then this one, I don't know why it's red, but that should be a ground. Yep, that's 0 volts. Pin 3 is receive. Now it's minus 5 or minus 4.5. That's really weird. How can you have a negative voltage? So I turn it off, turn it on. You see some kind of pulse right there. Let's try that again. Key off, key on. See that pulse? If you run, then we'll just zoom in here a little bit. So try talking, but obviously it's not talking. Okay, and now it's stuck at minus 4.3 volts. The other wire that transmit from, I'm guessing from the scanner to the board, you see a little pulse there? It's trying to talk. Again, not talking. So that's already a bad sign for this board. We have powers and grounds. It's not talking. It's clicking this relay. I can prove that. If I just take power away from the board, the relay stops clicking. So it's the board clicking the relay, and I know which wire it is. We'll see that on the wiring diagram. This output function, pin 8, is our auxiliary 1. So this is kind of a generic controller that's been customized to this machine. And inputs are just, you know, switches or joysticks or whatever. They're right there. So right now, right off the bat, I'm suspecting something's wrong with this board. But let's look at the wiring diagram and get a little more familiar of what this relay is, where it's controlled from, stuff like that. So like I said, wiring diagrams for this thing were not easy to source. The owner has the service and parts manual, but for some reason they omitted the wiring diagrams. I told him, I'm not touching this thing if I don't have wiring diagrams. It's not a Genie or JLG, which I have like a library of diagrams for. But this thing was from a European website. The print quality isn't great, but it's a lot better than nothing. So C4 is our multiplex controller. And the solenoid that's clicking, if you look at the solenoid layout, or the relay layout rather, R9. Okay? So is R9 controlled by the board? Here it is, R9. You see, this is the control. It's grounded on this side of the control wire. So something is turning it on and off. And this wire comes from pin 8 on the outputs of C4. So this took a couple hours just to study this diagram. You see I have powers and grounds. The layout of the machine here is the ground, emergency switch. There's the ignition switch. And then on the upper controls, we have our emergency switch right here, an ignition switch right here. So the issue is when you're in platform control. And this controller is only used from the upper controls. You see we have joysticks up here. These switches on the ground controls, they're just analog. They feed the same solenoids, or most of them. So some functions you can control from both the ground and the platform. Some functions like drive, steer, those can only be controlled from the platform through this C4 controller. For example, let's look at one. Like C1 is the drive. So if you just follow the wires, so it's a it's a potentiometer. Steer and drive is in one kind of assembly. These wires go up here, here to our 1, 2, 3 controlled solenoids. 5 and 6 are the steer. Well, the inputs to C4, let's see, let's follow these 3 or 4 wires. Yeah, see, comes from the drive. Yeah, this white and red. And then also from D3 and or C2 and C3, which is extend retract. And the see, C3 is, you can always come back to here. Turret rotate, that's the main rotation, of the entire machine. And that's what the customer is having problems with. He said it just rotates on its own, it extends and retracts on its own. All these functions are controlled by C4, this Superplex 1990s fancy controller. And the fact that it doesn't talk to the little scanner, he said when it works, it actually talks to the scanner. They could change out the parameters, whatever, basically the speeds of the functions. But when it doesn't talk and it's clicking this relay and it's doing nutty stuff, it's a board problem. It's not an input problem. So what do? Tell them get a new board. Is that the end of the diagnosis? We can take the board off, inspect for cracked solder joints, blown capacitors, stuff like that. Where are you going to get an outdated 25-year-old controller? This company is probably not even in business, maybe eBay, but this is kind of along the lines of outdated computerized components is what's going to take vehicles off the road. Construction equipment, cars, you name it. It's kind of unfortunate. If this thing was all analog, it would still be running just fine, I'm sure. Hey, it actually came online, and pin number 3, the receive, look, it's actually talking. Let's see, transmit. That's it. That's our known good communication. So let's see, function select. Let's play around with this thing while it's still operational. Threshold lift up. Threshold swing. Extend in. Drive. So you can adjust it down and up. Run mode, normal functions off. So I guess this is just to control the calibrations here. It's not, but it does tell us if the board is online or not. Let's try again. So switch it off. So it instantly comes online when it's working. When it's not working, it's not happy. So let's take it for a little test drive, and I want to see, using my extended lead here, for example, pin 10 and 4 are going to be our swing functions. I want to see if, when I move the joystick, if the inputs react accordingly. Okay, so while this thing is mostly happy, I have the oscilloscope lead stretched all the way up to here. And this is where the little portable oscilloscopes come in super handy. So you don't want your Pico to be smashed up by a boom lift. So I don't know if you guys will be able to make out the signal. Let's see, right there. So I'm gonna do pivot left. So you need the foot switch. There we go. So that's left full. See the pulse width is changing. And then pivot right. Pulse width is changing there. And I tried all of them, and on that channel they all for some reason show up. Of noise. So the amplitude of that signal let's see again. I'm only on a 5-volt scale, so it's like 0 to 2 volts. So these are not analog joysticks, they're actually sending a pulse width to the controller board. Let's try to get this thing to act up again, and if it when it does, I want to see if the inputs from the joysticks are still good. And go from there. Well, next step, got the controller board off, got the little panel off. This is all coated in nice conformal goop. We're just looking for either cracked solder joints, blown capacitors, anything that looks suspicious at all. I'm not seeing anything right offhand. This thing was working perfectly for 5 minutes in a row. I mean, what changed? You would think it would, once it's warm, it would stop working completely, but I was talking, all the functions were working perfectly. I really don't know what to say here. So I'm going to reinstall it, spray the contacts with some deoxit, and take it for a test drive, see if it'll act up again. Alright, so here's an interesting test. I'm just putting the board on. You see the little red lights flashing there. We can plug in these connectors. I sprayed them with deoxit and see if anything changes. See that little red light stop flashing? So I turn the key off, key on. It just says initializing system. It can't talk when I plugged in this connector. Let's unplug it. Set the camera over here. So let's power cycle it. Off. On. Still no response. Just flexing the board a little bit. Oh, there, red light came on. We have communication again. Let's try that again. Off. On. Okay, we have a red light. Plug in this connector. Plug in this connector. Let's do threshold. Yep, we're talking. So as long as this red light is blinking, we're online. If it's not, we're not online. And it's intermittent. I know it's in the board. Oh, there it goes. See the red light turned off? You start clicking this relay, and I'm sure if you push function select, scanner's offline. So we're very close. I know the problem's in the board. Right there. See the red light came on when I like flexed the board? That's probably as far as we can go. Unless we find an obvious cracked solder joint. See, like right there? Yeah. Just solid red. Let's try another key cycle. Let's see, can we talk? No. Flashing red light. Yes, we can talk. So let me try flexing, try to at least narrow down the location of the problem. Right there. It's off, clicking. Okay, so it's reproducible. That's pretty neat. That's pretty much as far as I can go with this thing, I think. Right, here's a final demonstration of the bad board. So turn the key on. If that red light's not flashing and the relay's clicking, the computer is not happy. It says initializing system. If I just slightly, there you go, push the board, you get a red light, we initialized. So, see, now it's happy. It's so touchy. Little vibration, little heat, boom. It's a bad board, guaranteed. Where are you gonna find one? I have no idea. Are you gonna find a bad solder joint somewhere in this board that's cracked? Maybe it's a cracked trace. It's insane. Could we temporarily preload the board so the machine's functional, at least to get it out of the driveway? Maybe, maybe not. So let's see, if I push right in the middle, so if I bend it in, seems to be happy. Let's cycle the key one more time. It's happy. If I bend it out, I barely touched it. Again, bend it in. We're back online. So if we can tweak this board slightly, see right there, it just on its own, it quit working. Working. Not working. Oh. I mean, I can't guarantee the repair, obviously, but just temporarily, can we make this board happy? So that relay's clicking right there. I want to try to do something. We have to. There's no other options here. Can we just push in on it like that? Wow. So here's the temporary solution to pre-flex this board. You just put a couple washers under this side. So there's 2 screws here, 2 in the middle, and 2 on this side. So no washers, and a couple washers. So when I tighten these down, this board will flex like we're pushing in on the middle, and that's what kept it alive. plug it in and see what works. All right, here we go. The owner of the lift is anxiously awaiting the test drive with the pre-flexed circuit board. So I'll try to do a slow turn. Is that good? Then the other way. I can go fast if you want. You can go fast.
No. Try to get close to a building.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna try to drive this thing towards the barn. So for that, you let go of the foot. Yep. Oh, we don't want to run any kids over. Oh, so far so good. The owner wants it over by the barn. This is always the reward, is getting a nice view after you fix the boom lift. Alright, so the final fix here is the binder clip squeezing the bottom side of the board. It's happy for now, but if it acts up again, the owner will know what to do. Just tweak the board again, try to find a new one, and that's that. So, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.